Hello, hello. How's everybody doing today? It is Tuesday, May 13th. Hopefully y'all are having a good day. It's been a busy day. I'm a little bit on a little bit later than I normally am, but there's a lot to cover, y'all. I'm going to be obviously digging into the DePIN stuff. I'm going to be spending some time on the decentralized cloud compute sector within DePIN. I think these projects have the ability to do really, really well and in the long term. What's up, Robert? How's it going? So yeah, we're going to be covering some decentralized cloud compute networks in the DePIN space. We're going to be going through the broader crypto news, some big things happening right now. The broader news, the macro news, of course, some big stuff going on with Saudi Arabia and Trump. And I'm going to be busting down, let's see, we're going to talk about Cryptopunks. You know, there's a story behind the Cryptopunks I don't think a lot of people are aware of, where they're not actually the originals. There was another set released 2 weeks before the Cryptopunks that are really valuable that are now on the market. And I'm going to break those down as well because I think there's some opportunities. I've actually done pretty well on and off with those over the last few years. So I'm going to dig into that at the end here. But hopefully everybody's having a good day. Robert, how are you doing? How's everybody else doing? Make sure to comment. It's a lot more fun when people interact. I like to interact with everybody. I came across this quote today. I just like to start things off with a little quote. And it said, "Choose kindness always." It's funny. I was talking to one of my friends a few months ago, and they're like, there's a big difference between being kind and being nice. I was like, what do you mean? Like, well, being nice is kind of fake. There's always some people. There's people out there that are always nice to everybody, but being kind is like actually with, your true self, just being kind to people in general. Being nice in a lot of ways, you're not being honest with people. You're just very surface level being nice. So always want to be kind, surround yourself with kind people. Just living the dream. I feel that, man. I feel that. So we got some fun stuff to cover today. If you guys have any projects that you wanted me to look at, by the way, just let me know. B13SR. Missed you yesterday, but thanks for joining today. We're gonna break in to the DePIN update. Let's see what we got here. We have, I think I touched on this yesterday, but 900,000 daily users for Helium. I had our X Space earlier, and we all had bold predictions on how many users there would be on Helium by the end of the year. It ranged anywhere from like 4 million to 15 million. They've got some big stuff happening with AT&T down in Mexico. I think Helium is going to be an absolute monster, and we're going to continue to see these types of trends. So people are sleeping on it. The price is still like around $4. Man, crazy. It hit almost $60 in the last market cycle. So talk about real world utility. So keep an eye on Helium, H&T. I think they're doing some really big things. And they'd split off and doing IoT and mobile tokens. They are back to H&T for the whole ecosystem. So I love that. By the way, if you're watching, make sure to like. If you're on X, make sure to share as well. So this came out. Rob Solomon with Demo posted this. About how in the EU now, they are requiring vehicle manufacturers to hand over their data. So this is kind of interesting. I think there's a big misconception about what Demo is doing. People think they're just like taking vehicle data and monetizing it. But what they're actually doing is allowing vehicle owners to take ownership of their data, and then they're opening up basically an ecosystem for people to build applications so that vehicle owners can leverage their data in different ways. And this is a massive revenue stream that's coming. So the problem has been a lot of vehicle manufacturers have had complete ownership over that data. What Demo does, basically, if you have a smart car, you can connect for free to the network and start earning Demo tokens. So if you have a smart vehicle, especially a Tesla, there's no reason not to download the Demo app and start making money. But if you don't, if you have an older car, you can still get a unit to connect and start earning Demo tokens just for connecting. And essentially, you can pull your data, take back ownership of your data from the manufacturers. So EU is like requiring this now. I think in the future, the US will probably follow suit, but I think this just goes to show that Demo is on the right track there. And I think there's a very bright future ahead. I thought this is interesting. So XNet came out, and this guy, Richard Duvall, he was talking about how 80% of US mobile data is served over Wi-Fi today. I had no idea that high of a percentage was sent over Wi-Fi. So that I found that pretty remarkable. I think that's huge for XNet, huge for Helium. So pretty interesting stat. I thought that was much higher than I expected. So definitely wanted to throw that out there. Streamer. I'm a big fan of Streamer and what they're doing. A decentralized data streaming network. So, a lot of these DePIN projects aren't fully decentralized, whether they use AWS for cloud compute storage. This is allowing for decentralized data transfer, and they partnered with Follow Network. So pretty cool stuff there. They're basically talking about building out smart cities with a decentralized solution. So you got to love that. That's what I got for the individual DePIN projects. I want to talk about the decentralized cloud compute, though, y'all, because to me, I think when you look at the potential revenue generation, this is another thing we covered earlier on the space was, which DePIN projects do you think will produce the most revenue this year? And I think it's going to be decentralized cloud compute networks. And this is what, this is the reason. Okay. So right now, there's been a lot of, talk about AI, obviously, and the training aspect of it, which requires a tremendous amount of power, but a lot of GPU capacity. But now we're getting to the point where the inferencing side is starting to also require a lot of compute power. That's actually running the models that are trained. The problem has been that a lot of large entities have more or less monopolized the high-end cloud compute capacity, the high-end GPUs. So to do training on the the high end, you need to have like legitimate AI data centers where you have hundreds of thousands of these NVIDIA, AMD GPUs that require a tremendous amount of power from the grid, cooling systems. You have to have professionals come in and build these things out. But you have AWS, you have Google Cloud, these big centralized players that more or less monopolize these GPUs, and they're hard to get. Like the NVIDIA chips are, they sell to a specific set of buyers. You can't just come in and be like, hey, I want 2,000 of your newest chips. That's just not how it works. They're back ordered, and you really have to have an N and bit and deep pockets to do that. So this is where I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of opportunity in the DePIN space, because essentially what these projects are doing is utilizing compute capacity would otherwise be idle. So you have a lot of businesses, for example, that have built out data centers that they don't use 24/7. That when they're sitting idle now, they can monetize that, create a new revenue stream for themselves. And then people that would have to try to go through AWS now have an alternative, because for small to medium-sized businesses, if they go to AWS and try to get access to these GPU resources, good luck. For one, a lot of these big and centralized entities require really long contracts and flexible terms. They charge an arm and a leg. Okay. So it's really cornered out the small and medium-sized businesses to being able to really play in the AI space. In a lot of AI startups, this has been one of their biggest line item costs, but for many of them, it's holding them back. So again, with DePIN, now if you think about like Fiverr or Upwork, it's essentially serving as this middleman, right? Where people that need GPU resources can go to this platform and be connected with entities that have idle GPUs, and they kind of they connect the two, if you will. So that kind of sets the stage for why I think these projects can do so well. So the first one I want to cover is Nosana, built on Solana. You see right here, they have right now 1,192 GPUs available, 481 are being utilized right now. So this network is getting solid usage. One other thing I should say is when you're sourcing GPUs from different locations like this, it is really good for the inferencing side of things. So for running AI models, not necessarily going to work for like training really sophisticated AI models, but for running them, it's fantastic. And that's where I think a lot of this inferencing side of things is going to be utilized through these platforms. So let's just take a look at Asana's price here, down at 95 cents. If you look, it got all the way up to $6.53. I thought it even got higher than that, actually. But this thing has obviously been beaten down quite a bit. Now, if we see a lot of these projects, I think are going to do really well in the long term. But if we see, the market rebound, I think these are really prime candidates to bounce back in a major way. They're sitting at 95 cents, $95 million market cap, and they're driving real revenue. Next one is a cash network. So if you look here, it looks like they've driven about $3 million in revenue, $10,000 a day currently. Let's see, how many GPUs do they have? They got 867 being used currently. And this is another one that was down quite a bit. This one's actually run pretty well recently. So it got all the way down to, I think it got lower than that, I thought. Let's see, let's look at the last. Got down to $1 there. I know in the bear market, it was, down to 18 cents. So it has bounced pretty well recently, but still, compared to where it was earlier in this market cycle, we got to over $5 a couple of times. So $1.82, $707 million market cap. So this is a higher cap for sure. But another one of these GPU projects that's been getting a lot of utilization, that's doing really well. Aether is one. Look at this annual reoccurring revenue, $113 million. That's not, I don't think there's any other DePIN projects that I know of that are doing that. That's pretty impressive. They have a higher market cap, of course, justifiably so. When you're driving $113 million in revenue, so 2.2 billion. That's the fully diluted valuation. 466 million based on current circulating supply. So another one where we were at before, we're up to 87 cents. This thing has been climbing, obviously, just even in the last month, probably. Yeah, look at that in the last month, quite a recovery. But still, when you're looking at that type of revenue, that's insane. So another really solid project to take a look at. IONET's another one. IONET had a lot of FUD early on. Their CEO ended up having to step down. He had quite a checkered history that came to light. They got rid of him. And it looks like now, they got 2,288 GPUs being utilized. 3,200 are idle at the current moment, but over 5,500 GPUs and CPUs on their network. If you look at their network map, you can see that they have resources really all over the world. So North America, over in Europe, even over in Asia. I mean, so pretty decentralized. And if we look at the pricing here, what do we got? We're at $1.19. I think this thing launched somewhere around $5. Yeah. So current market cap, 190 million. I think these are the projects, these decentralized GPU projects, because they have DePIN going, they have the AI narrative going, and they're driving actual revenue. I mean, these things can easily get in the billions. We see a couple of them are already up there. Render's another one. Their team is ridiculous. Their advisors, Ari Emanuel, the CEO of Endeavor, they own the WWE and UFC. J.J. Abrams, obviously, I think he's directed a couple Star Wars movies. You got Brandon Ike, the founder, CEO of Brave Browser, Michael Winkleman, or otherwise known as Beeple, NFT artist. Render is same boat, doing decentralized GPU resources. I went to the Las Vegas Sphere for New Year's, and I didn't know so after the fact, but Render was used to power that whole show. It's pretty crazy. Talking about real world usage. What's up, Joe? Oh, my brother's on too. What's up, man? Um, this one did get low. Let's see. What did it get down to? 488. Man, what a steal. But still, we're still quite down. I mean, we got all the way up to 1187. And this is a behemoth project. The team, you also have like Kathy Wood mentioned them recently. So they're well known. 3.4 billion is the total fully diluted valuation, but current with circulating supply 2.7 billion. So another one to look at. So all of these, Nosana, Akash, Aether, IONET, Render, they're all getting major usage. I think they're all really good for inferencing. Now, a project that I've covered that I have not seen other people cover, and I'm not sure why it's still flying under the radar so much, is Exabits. Okay. They have not had their token launch yet, y'all. But this is some serious alpha. This group, they have brought in people from a lot of Web2 companies that know how to build out legitimate data centers, with thousands of high-end NVIDIA GPUs. And they are going after Web2 customers. They understand the security aspect of it. And this project is super legit. They did 10 million in revenue just last year, and they're just getting going. And they just raised a bunch of money as well in an investment round. And it's also worth noting the other projects that I talked about, IONET, Akash, Aether, right? They're all sourcing GPUs from Exabit. So like they have their own GPUs, but when they have a Web2 customer come in that's like, hey, I actually need to like train AI models, I need some legitimate data centers, they go to Exabits for those resources so they can service Renders up there too. So they can service those customers. So, it's in essence for the high-end GPUs that these groups are using, Exabits will get you exposure to all of those projects. So that's why I'm so bullish on Exabits. Once they have the token launch, I think it'll be in the next quarter. So keep that one on your radar. I don't know why it's not getting any coverage, but whatever. I think it will. It will. Let's see. Do we got any more? All right. Let's bust into some broader crypto news. Let's get to that window here. Where are we at? Here we go. Boom. Guess what? Coinbase joining the S&P 500. Woo! That's big news, y'all. That is big news. And talk about a green candle. We love to see those. But yeah, man, Coinbase stock joining the S&P 500, and it's estimated. Let's see here. Estimated that is going to see as much as 16 billion in buying pressure. Crazy, man. Crazy. This would have been unthinkable 3-4 years ago. I mean, if you remember when the FTX stuff was happening, all that, it's amazing how far we have come, y'all. Oh, man. So that is huge news. I mentioned this. I'm going to touch on this in a minute, but Yuga Labs sold Cryptopunks IP. So I'm going to talk about the story behind that, because there's a history that I don't think many people are aware of with that project. I think an opportunity to get exposure, because the CryptoPunks floor price is priced out most people at this point, but we'll talk more about that. Jim Cramer, he said that he thinks I can't believe people on the internet think Bitcoin will go over 200,000 this year. Like, well, now it's going to go over 200,000. We know how that works. Thank you, Jim Cramer. Appreciate it. We actually had our Bitcoin price predictions this year for this year on our space earlier. We did have a couple people say over 200,000. Mine was in the 140s. We'll see what happens. I mean, the squeeze is certainly coming. Billionaire Galaxy Digital just announced that they're holding over $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, and they are about to go public, apparently. So there's gonna be another public company holding Bitcoin. Metaplan out of Japan is buying more. Buying more. That's all they do. They just buy Bitcoin. In fact, if you look, the corporate Bitcoin purchases have outpaced new Bitcoin supply by 3.3 times. Okay. So remember, there's 450 Bitcoin being mined per day right now. In 3 years, that's going to be cut in half again. So this amount of buying pressure is certainly going to cause a major squeeze. Then you add BlackRock, 20 days in a row of inflows on Bitcoin. Man, this is it's getting crazy. The OTC desks are definitely drying up. The exchanges are drying up. Eventually, there's going to be a major supply shock, and that price is just going to go parabolic when that happens. Oh, I thought this was funny. Do y'all remember when New York City Mayor Eric Adams was like, "I'm going to get paid in Bitcoin"? Everyone's like, "You're an idiot," and he's like, "Actually, no. actually, it's really smart." All you people holding fiat. So he got the last laugh. That's generally how it works. People that opt into Bitcoin payments end up coming out ahead. Maybe not in the short term always, but over a longer period, it seems to always work out, at least to this point. I saw this. Can you imagine? Okay, so this person back in 2013, they bought 300 Bitcoin for $134,000. Can you imagine Diamond handing that all the way through up to 69,000 through the FTX debacle through this entire time for 12 years and then selling them for $31 million? Man, that's hard. That would be difficult. I don't know if I could do that. That's freaking crazy. I don't know about you all, but and this is what I was just talking about. Look at the withdrawals from exchanges. And this is something you see, right? When people are looking to become long-term holders, they move it off of exchanges. You generally see them move it onto exchanges when they're ready to sell. Freaking nuts, man. Absolutely nuts. Oh, and this is super unfortunate. I don't know if y'all saw this, but there's been several instances where people connected to co-founders or CEOs of crypto companies, they're looking to basically extort them out of money. And there's one, Ledger, the wallet, crypto wallet co-founder, was kidnapped in France. They chopped off his finger. You've got a father of a crypto influencer abducted in France, chopped off their finger. And then today they tried to kidnap the daughter of an unnamed crypto exchange CEO. They were fortunately not successful, but they're going to have to start having security. I mean, we're seeing this in other stuff in the US, right? Like people, CEOs, all that, they're going to have to start having security. Unfortunately, as crypto becomes more successful, we're going to see more of that, but crazy stuff. Oh man. We're ready to move into the broader macro news. Let's dig in. Well, my brother will probably disagree with this, but look, the eggs are down. Egg prices are down 12.7% on the month. Biggest tumble since 1984. Hey, they had to kill off like hundreds of millions of chickens because that bird flu. It looks like finally they've got that under control. That's good news. What do we got? Oh, JP Morgan. No longer calling for a recession after the trade deal went into effect. That's good news. Let's see what the market says. What does Polymarket say? Back up to a 40% chance. This thing got all the way up to 66% at one point. So good to see that that's falling. I don't think we're out of the woods yet. Okay. There are plenty of warning signs. There have been now for a better part of like 2 years. So I think things were already fractured before the tariff situation happened. Now we're back to where we were before the tariff situation, but I think there's still a lot of underlying weakness in the economy. Tesla's up 35%. Walls was like, "Hey, Tesla sucks," and then it's up 35%. This is what people need to realize. Tesla is not just a vehicle company. They're like long term, their value is going to come from the data they're collecting and their charging network. So they collect a tremendous amount of data. Their charging network is now getting opened up to other manufacturers, but and they're self-driving. All of that is going to have massive value for that company on top of the vehicles, obviously. But I think long-term Tesla is gonna do quite well. Oh, NVIDIA announced a huge deal with Saudi-backed company Humane, I believe is how you pronounce that. But huge data center being built out, but massive news for NVIDIA. So, and if you don't know about NVIDIA, so they based out of, NVIDIA is based out of the U.S. They design the chips. TSMC manufactures their chips, but they specialize in AI chips. So huge news there, and the stock liked it. Look at that! Look at that pump based on that news. Massive stuff there. Oh man! And look, the S&P, like I said, we are back to where we were. We're back to positive on the year. That's great news. Looks like a lot of the tariff scare is behind us. I still, like I said, I don't think we're out of the woods yet. But McDonald's announced they're hiring 375,000 workers this summer. So that's big news. There are still some layoffs happening, though. Like Microsoft's cutting 3% of their workforce. I think that's probably more from AI replacing jobs than anything. There's another one. I forget what company it was that announced some layoffs yesterday. And I know there were a lot of reports of corporations that were coming up with lists of who they were going to lay off if things got worse. So with the China situation kind of getting resolved, at least for now, maybe that has changed the tune for a lot of these people. We'll see. We will see. It did come out today that people are still making minimum payments on credit cards. That's not a good sign. But we'll see how this all plays out. United Health. Oh, man. Huge drop. I guess their CEO announced they were leaving, and they suspended 2025 guidance. A lot of businesses did that when the tariff situation was in full force. But man, what's crazy about this though is it actually pulled down the Dow Jones. Look at it compared to everything else. Like their stock alone just had a huge impact. Crazy stuff there. Oh man. And let's see what else we have here. We've got some other news. Trump met with Saudi Arabia today. They had a big meeting. A strategic economic partnership was announced. Guess what? They're going to be investing $600 billion into the U.S. That's a big number with a B, 600 billion. They've got Saudi Arabia agreed to $142 billion in defense sales. So this is a pretty big deal, I would say. We also have SpaceX completed its 28th launch with this Falcon booster. I know that they get a lot of bad press because people hate Elon, but they are definitely pushing new limits. Here's a bunch of their boosters that have had, that has 28, 25, 24, 23. So pretty amazing stuff. NASA is trying to do the same thing now. So, I mean, look, SpaceX is pushing the envelope. You don't have to like Elon. I get why people dislike Elon, but some of his companies are doing some pretty incredible stuff, I have to say. And a couple other quick things before we get into the NFT stuff. Diddy apparently is talking. So there's a lot of powerful people tied to this case, man. And you have to wonder how long Diddy's going to live. If he all of a sudden something happens to him in his jail cell, would not be surprised, given some of the other events we've seen in the past. And just some fun sports news. Pete Rose has been removed from the permanently ineligible list. He can now join the Hall of Fame. Pete Rose with the most hits in history. Kind of cool. He was betting on baseball, so wasn't allowed, but he's now allowed to be added to the Hall of Fame. Pretty cool stuff. All right. We're going to break into the news around the Cryptopunks. And I think most people are not aware of this. I think there's some potentially huge opportunity, actually, because of that. That's going to be our Knowledge is Power lesson today. So the Cryptopunks, if you remember, they are probably the most well-known NFT collection. If we look right now, the floor on them, $128,000 floor, the lowest punk available. These things launched very, very early in Ethereum's days, one of the very first NFT collections to ever launch. Probably the most well-known. But there's a story about this collection. These were not the original, actually. They're the most valuable. But 2 weeks before these were launched, the same group launched the identical set with the identical imagery, everything. But there was an issue with the contract on them. There's videos about this, by the way. I should have tried to uncover those. They're pretty easy to find if you want to search them. But 2 weeks prior, they released the exact same set. But in the contract, when someone sold the NFT, it would transfer ownership, but then it refunded the money to the buyer. And they're like, well, what do we do? And they decided 2 weeks later that they would just release the exact same set again. And that's the NFT collection that people know and love. This is actually the second time this NFT set was released. Pretty crazy. Now, just a few years ago, someone patched the original contract in those Cryptopunks, the actual first ones on the blockchain, hit the market. And they are known as CryptoPunk V1s. So they have a wrapper on them, on their contract. The CryptoPunks owners try to really keep it under wraps. They actually try to like litigate all this stuff. As it turns out, a lot of the OG owners went ahead that own the original, own these. They're not actually the first ones. They're the more valuable ones. A lot of them went and purchased their version of the V1s to have the complete set. But look at the floor price on these. It's still not cheap, but 2.74 ETH, $7,300. That's a lot cheaper than the what is this? 128,000. Now, I believe the IP rights. I know there's some legal stuff there that with these versions, as far as the imagery goes, but on chain, these will forever be the first ones. And after that contract got patched, these, I mean, and there's a lot of activity on these too. I mean, if you look at, let's look at the activity. A lot of people are buying and selling these things. There's 26 minutes ago, 3 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours. I mean, there's 10 sales a day on these things, and that's when the market's down. So I actually found these a few years ago and was able to buy some and flip them and make pretty good money on them. When the market's down, I'm always looking at these because sometimes they do drop below 2 ETH. And I think it's not a bad move, for a long-term hold to see what happens here. If NFTs ever have a major comeback, I think they could actually do well because, again, these are the OGs. These are the originals. These came out 2 weeks prior from the same group than these. Same imagery, same everything. So wanted to make you all aware of that. I'm not a big NFT person. For me, if it has historical relevance in a story with it, that's interesting, right? So that brings me to one other NFT collection that I do have ownership in that I scooped up, over the last few years here and there during the bear market. It's kind of funny. They're known as crypto titties. These, I believe, were it says launched in August 2021. That was a new contract that I think they got launched on. But originally, I believe they were launched in 2017. They were, I think, the 16th collection on Ethereum, and they were the very first ones to have let's see, they donated to breast cancer awareness. Now, the thing that I like about it has historical relevance. It's the first charity NFT, and they're extremely rare, okay, because there's only 144 in the entire set. And normally you have 10,000. So right now the floor price is 2.25 ETH. These things in the bear market dropped to like, I think 0.7 ETH, and Ethereum price was down. So I was scooping those up. So these are the ones that I keep an eye on as well. When the market drops out, scoop them up and hold as like a long-term lottery ticket potentially, just because they are super early on Ethereum. They have a story behind them. They're really, really, really rare with 144 in the set. So those are the ones I wanted to cover. Other than that, like, NFTs, we saw it. The same thing we're seeing with the meme coins this market cycle is like, hey, you might have some blue chip ones that stick around, like your Doge, your Shiba. I'm sure there'll be a couple from this market cycle. Most of them will go to zero. But those ones I just covered hold value, and I think they have a lot lower to be a potential blue chip in the long term, have a lower floor than a lot of the other ones that are out there. What's up, Georgie? That's what I got for the show today, y'all. Appreciate y'all joining. I think we had 65 people in today. We had a little bit more yesterday. It's not the normal time, though. Normally I have a pretty set schedule, but it was a busy day. It was a busy day. What did you say? Pete Rose Jr. was a player for the minor leagues in Chile. Huh. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, man, Pete Rose, I think he deserves to be in there. Like, he's passed now, so I'm sure he'll get in pretty quickly now that he's eligible. So that's the news for today. I'm sure tomorrow I should be back the normal time. I'm sure there'll be plenty more to cover. But as always, appreciate you all. Get outside, get some fresh air, get some sunlight. Hope you all have a fantastic day. The weather is beautiful here in Chicago. And if you get out to Vegas for the Bitcoin conference, definitely let me know. I'll be out there. So looking to meet people in the community, other crypto people. It's always fun hanging out with people that are into crypto, because I'll tell you, like, my normal friend group, they don't want to hear about it. I've talked about it too much. So it's fun to talk to other people that have like interests. But y'all take care.